turn them around. Oh shit, look, I turned them into a crown. Make it dance, make it work for you. Coin is for the spending. If you scatter it, then you'll reap the profits of the seeds you've sown. What do you know? Look, I turned it into a throne. We do what we do to keep the water flowing. The more you give, the more it keeps growing. I don't want your gifts, I don't want your charity. I just want to see some other love and prosperity. The wheel keeps turning, the wheel keeps turning, the wheel keeps turning round. If the water won't flow, then the crops don't grow, so the wheel keeps turning round. The wheel keeps turning, the wheel keeps turning, the wheel keeps turning round. If the water won't flow, then the crops don't grow, so the wheel keeps turning round. I make my living by the sweat of my brow, the strength of my voice and my lyrical know-how. I work hard, I spend freely, I'm not rich, but damn am I...
Let's see if that has worked. Audio looks good. Audio looks good. Everyone's there. Hi, chat. Welcome. We can hear
Hello.
Steve. It has worked. That's wonderful.
Are we now live?
We are now live. So
hey.
I just need to tidy up where chat is a little bit on the stream. So that's cool. So yeah. So what I was saying. So we started just as I was saying to Matt about what we're like a project that I'm working on, that we're working on. So Extreme Makeover LARP edition. So it's me with £200, Matt Kaz with £200, and we both have a brand new LARPer, someone who has never been to Empire before and has zero kit. And so as a community, we will fund their very first bits of kit and all of this sort of stuff. But it's a bit of a competition. So to see who has done it the best. So you've got Matt Kaz with his encyclopedic knowledge of the wiki and knows so much about the game. And then there's me, who has done all of this channel stuff so I can find out more about the game myself. Because I don't know a great deal. There we go. There you go. Exactly, Matt. It does sound like a swell idea. So Matt
sounds cool. Yeah. That sounds cool.
So yeah, and it gives a brand new player, they don't have to have that massive expenditure as well. And we're going to do.
It's not just the money, it's that level of support, isn't it? It's it's telling you that you're welcome in this community, and it's also it gives you the confidence of knowing that you can walk into the game with some kit that's going to look good. Yeah. It's something I've talked about in public before. I think we really underestimate in LARP costume nerves and people's nervousness about their appearance and the way they dress. Yeah. And we're all hyper aware in real life of how important people's visual identity is to their mental well-being. Yeah. And then we act like in LARP that'll all just go away. As if like nobody would be worried about how they were dressed or how people were thinking about them. We just pretend, that wouldn't happen in LARP. That's like, duh.
Yeah, that's one of the things that a lot of people bring up. I've done, I did a questionnaire, an anonymous questionnaire through the Discord of saying like, what are the questions that you want to ask but you don't want to ask because you don't want to be associated with that question, because people don't want to be seen to say something or do something stupid.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
So one of the questions was how bad are people at judging kit when you're in the field? Am I going to get picked on if something's wrong and stuff like that? And
yeah, I mean, it's a really solid question. How bad are people? Worse than I'd like, much better than you fear they're going to be. The overwhelming majority of players will not judge you for your costume. I think firstly, people are very considerate towards new players. There's generally an understanding that new players are finding their feet. Yeah. And also, I've had 30 years of buying LARP costume, so I've got an entire wardrobe full of kit. You would expect, if I walk into a field, I'm going to just be easier to hit a certain standard. You'd be wrong because I'm rubbish with costume, but you'd expect that to be true. And so I think people will automatically give new players a certain degree of license. But we do try really hard to make clear to everybody that comments are just not appropriate in our game. Saying to any kind of passing judgment, either verbal or kind of gestures, is just not appropriate. And I think generally the community are pretty good about engaging with that.
Yeah.
But people, somewhere, somehow, somebody will do it without thinking. Just because of 2,000 people in the field, somebody's going to say something dumb.
Yeah.
Just like they would in any environment.
Yeah.
But I genuinely think that it's a bit like a dog. Its bark is much worse than its bite. Much, much worse.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
I think people fear, will I be accepted? Will my costume be good enough? Will I look okay when I go to this party? And actually, you're just going to be fine.
Yeah. We're quite lucky, really, because we've got some incredible people who make kit and stuff like that, and we've got Rosemary as well in the Discord. And when it comes to kit, we're like, we know this, but we'll tag Rosemary in it as well, because her knowledge is insane, and her keen for helping people out when it comes to making kit is fantastic. It's infectious, I think is the
I
word.
might be one of the people who wrote the game, but I still go to Rosemary when I want to discuss costume. It's like she has a better grasp on the look and feel than I do, without shadow of a doubt. Very encyclopedic knowledge, and a real good level, because she's worked with a lot of people who are very new to it and have very limited abilities to put costume together. She's not going to pitch you on a £2,500 mega outfit. It's like completely not viable. She really understands. She's a fantastic costume.
She is fantastic. I mean, it's kind of a running joke when it comes to me making kit that I use a stapler. So that's pretty much the sort of level I'm at. But everyone's really supportive to everybody. Everyone encourages everyone. And when people are asking about kit, they're not all sat there saying, go off and buy this 500 piece of kit from over here, this 300 piece of kit from over there. They're saying things like, well, you can buy this tunic from this place for like £7, and all of that sort of stuff. But it's very much it's very aspirational, everything that you are doing and we are looking to do.
Yeah.
So,
and to go back to that point about, will you feel embarrassed? Will you feel out of place? For me, I'd go back to an anecdote of mine from being at university 30 years ago. And we went to see, the theatre show where they're all in drag and everyone dresses up in drag. Tim Curry, I can't remember the name of it now. It's a very famous show. It's going to ruin my anecdote. Someone in the chat log will know what I'm talking about. Rocky Horror Show. We go and see Rocky Horror Show. As anyone who's familiar with shows, the requirement is everybody dresses up. All the blokes dress in drag. That's the way it is. I was like, I'm not going to do that. I'll feel an idiot. So I'm in the theatre, and the only human being in the theatre not wearing drag. I felt like the biggest idiot on the planet, because I was the only person who hadn't made an effort. Yeah. And actually, it didn't matter what you did. No one was looking at the person next to them and going, well, their drag isn't good enough. It didn't matter. It just didn't matter. Some people looked amazing, some people didn't, but it didn't matter. All that mattered was you made an effort.
Yes.
And actually, that is all you need, not to look an idiot.
Yeah.
But if you don't make an effort, you look like me in a t-shirt and trousers at the Rocky Horror Show. I don't want that.
Well, we've been getting quite a lot of questions flowing through now.
Cool.
So, I hate to say it. The first question is exactly what we predicted. The first question would be:
is it Armour or COVID? Armour or COVID?
Yeah. So the big question. This is from John. What plans are there in regards to E4? Will we get an exclusive announcement today?
You will not get an exclusive announcement today. What can I say? I probably should have pre-cleared some corporate bollocks with my team before I came on the stream, because obviously this was going to get asked. Yeah, I'm not really into all that corporate crap. What can I say? So, where are we at? We've done a bunch of things. We've put together a group of people who I have a lot of respect for, really know what they're talking about on the health side. They're not members of our crew. Obviously, members of our crew are in that team, but they are people in the community who know their shit. And they've given us a load of kind of, well, you need to do this, you need to look at that, and they've given us a lot of points about safety, some of which we were already alert to, like you don't want to put the tavern up, some of which we haven't thought about. So that's been fantastically helpful. To a point, the risk is that obviously some of what they suggest goes so far that it makes the event non-viable. So there are big questions to us about, well, where are we going to pitch health and safety? And if the restrictions go past this point, well, it's not really an event anymore, and is it worth running? So it remains a really, really balanced decision. Now, I've got to say, on the 14th of July, which was just at the point where infection rates were going, it was not the point where they're going exponential. It was the point where the politicians realised they were going exponential. There's a very funny XKCD comic about politicians and scientists comparing exponential curves. But it was at the point where they were really ramping up, and they'd hit 40,000 a day, and it was just vertical. It was clear they were going to go through the roof. And we had a meeting, and we said, look, we can't run under this environment. We just can't do it. They're going to be, infections are going to be 200,000 a day. And we sort of said, well, let's not make the decision tonight. Let's say if infections are not below 40,000 in 10 days' time, we're canning it. Really, absolutely convinced that infections were not going to be below 40,000. It was just like, there's no way. Just no way on God's earth that's going to happen. And then we didn't really pay any attention to it for 2 or 3 days. We were like, well, decision made, really. And then, of course, by the 24th, daily infections were back below 40,000. And then we were like scratching our head and going, oh, that isn't what we expected. So where are we? We are desperately trying to make sense of the data. Yep. We are desperately talking to our team about what on earth, if this trend continues, what does that mean for the viability of the event? And the reality is we don't know. And you could tell we don't know because we haven't said anything yet.
Yeah.
The reality is the moment we know what we're doing, we will let people know. There's certainly no point in us sitting on it. There's no point in us making a decision and not telling anyone. No. So, if the event is happening, and we hope it is, but it is a hope at this stage, we will let everyone know. But there will be a lot of restrictions. There are obvious challenges around battles, makeup. There's challenges around God, toilet areas. There's challenges around people around the campfires, passing bottles around the campfire. There's everywhere you look, there are issues.
Yes.
If we run an event, it won't quite be like the last event you went to.
No. But no, there's been a lot of spitballing and just like what ifs and that been flying around, and it's pointless in even discussing it because we're not the politicians in charge. We're not medical marvels. We don't know. We don't understand everything that's going on, and we're not your team. We don't know, so we're not going to make any of the decisions. So I'm a firm believer in we just have to wait. That's all we can do. So
there's really, this comes down to 2 questions: is it safe, and is it worth it? And is it safe is a medical question that you judge against. Well, what can we do to mitigate risks, and what is the level of risk? And that for us is all about taking advice and listening to people. Yeah. And then that may or may not give us the shape of an event we could run. And then the question is, well, do people want us to run that event? Will enough people want to be involved and think, yeah, this is a good event to make it worth it? Or will people think, well, actually, we'd rather just wait till next year, assuming it will be any better next year? And I think it will. Again, our health team are like, no, things will be much, much better next year. But,
yeah. So
sorry, channel, but I'm afraid there's no great reveal tonight other than Matt still doesn't really know. Doesn't know, does he?
Well, who knows at the end of the day.
Quite.
The other question is, because you're coming on stream and then down here where I am, we got hit by a massive thunderstorm. So do you just bring rain wherever you go?
I do seem to have a knack for it. I don't quite know what that is, but I'll just. It's an Empire event weekend, so it's raining.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So we're not really gonna stay any longer on COVID because we're gonna sound like a broken record. So we are gonna move on. I want to talk about fun things, and at the end of the day, I'm going to say this from a player and someone who has seen Matt for the last year say event cancelled, event cancelled, event cancelled. So I think it was nice if we can touch on positives and look at some decent parts and give them something fun to talk about. So
it would be nice to think about something other than COVID for just 2 minutes of a day, of a week sometime.
Yeah, definitely. And I've just looked at the next question from Helen, my other half. How has the longest dark hit you with regards to the LARP blues? It must be very difficult to constantly be on the fence about things starting up or not.
That's an interesting question. I mean, this has been insane. I've been running LRP events for, 22, 23 years. I've been doing it since 2004 as my full-time job. I did it for 5 years before, 6, 7 years before that as a hobby. So it's just weird. And at first it didn't really bother me. At first it was just like a winter. But obviously the longer it goes on, the more it becomes a kind of, there's just, what even is time anymore? Nothing. Yeah. There's no meaning to anything. Time passes. Nothing happens. Nothing. Yeah, it is a little bit soul destroying, and frustrating because there's a kind of sense of this time slipping through your fingers, and you want to make good use of it, and it's just melting away like butter in the hot sun.
You could work on your kit.
Yeah, that's the thing. Yes, I could work on my kit, and you're right, that is aspirational. And I should do that. I should not make jokes about it. I should do that. But I don't blame anybody who has done nothing in this year and a half, because I found it incredibly hard. It's just hard to find the enthusiasm and the motivation. It just feels like nothing has any point anymore. But we've kept busy. There's some big projects we've worked on that are grinding, and they are big projects that are grinding away. And the irony is, we might well start up before they're done, but they will get done and they will get delivered in the next 3 to 6 months. We couldn't have done those in a regular time space. So it's like we've been able to tackle big stuff that we can't do when we're running events. So it's not been completely without benefit, but
no.
It is tough. It's tough.
Yeah.
It's just tough to find a. Sorry, and that's not a very positive answer there.
No. Well, if you want a positive, we had a chat about we literally sat down as like, so I have some Patreons and mods. We had a big chat about you,
right? And
it was a very positive chat, and it was meant to have arrived by now, but it hasn't. So I've had to chase that up. But we bought you something as a community here,
right?
And it's a lovely thing. It's a really, really nice thing. I know you don't.
I'm embarrassed by these things.
Good. So I will say to add as well that this community also paid for the lovely webcam that Mr. Matt P is using here as well.
Right, this instant. I would turn it and show it to the camera, but
you'd be there for a while.
Without a mirror.
We've bought you a like a wooden travel mug, like a big coffee tea travel mug, and it's engraved as well.
Okay.
It says Matt P, maker of profound decisions. See the double meaning there as well.
Yeah, that coffee mug turned up, much to the bemusement of everyone in our house.
They haven't told me it. They said we don't know what's happened with it.
Well, it just turned up. There was no message in the parcel. It was just a random thing. And Cordy was like, "Have you ordered this?" I was like, "No." And she's like, "Maybe like some company sent it as a supply or something." And we were like, "We have no idea." So it was a mystery guess. So we're like, "Oh, this is very nice," but we have no idea what it is. I think it's about somewhere. Don't know where it is.
Wonderful.
But yeah, it turned up, much to our bemusement. So now we know what the mystery present. That's another mystery solved.
Wonderful. They didn't tell me a thing.
Thank you very much, channel. That's very kind.
That's amazing. Bloody brilliant. Right, okay.
That's the second time I've had a strange mystery present. I once moved a friend of mine from his house, and they bought me some Jaffa cakes as a thank you. Only they ordered them, and they turned up kind of direct. and they turned up in a big box. And for some weird reason, the box invoiced for like £300 of Jaffa cakes. It was only like £3 of Jaffa cakes, but we're reading this invoice going like, what, has someone really paid £300 to send me a box of Jaffa cakes? It was amusing, but it turned out it'd been a friend thanking me for helping them move house. So I now know what the coffee mug is.
Yeah,
That's
so
another,
you get to enjoy that.
yes.
So another question here from Dennis. A question I've asked to Raf before on Twitter, but Twitter is terrible for conversations. But in regards to skirmishes, are there any plans to add more rewards for the players that actually attend the skirmish rather than just progressing plot for the relevant title-holding players?
That's an interesting question. I mean, is he talking about loot? Does he want more loot?
Well, I think he's in the league, so probably shiny things.
Yeah, it's a good argument. It's a solid argument.
Yes, he said loot.
There aren't any plans for it, but I'll have a think about it. I think it's a solid argument. I think it's an interesting point and a good one. There's an interesting balance with skirmishes in terms of, a communal benefit versus an individual benefit, and about incentives and who goes and what the rewards are. It's surprisingly hard logistically to put loot on skirmishes, just because it's a big effort to get the skirmish out the door. So to get the loot and get it approved and the ribbons or the coins or the fizz reps or whatever added in is more difficult than it ought to be. I'm not saying it's impossible, but it's more difficult than it ought to be.
Yeah, see, I love doing your skirmishes. They are great fun. I like doing the ones where you get lots of the new players on it because they're more nervous and they often do things, and they're really, really good fun to do. And I think you feel more involved in a skirmish as well.
It's always tricky because in the real world you have to pay mercenaries to go and fight.
Yeah.
Because people don't want to risk their life. You have to pay them to do that. I've always said, in Empire, you could stand by the gate and go, exciting opportunity to go and risk your life and possibly die. And people would pay you to have that opportunity to go. Which is the opposite, because fundamentally what you're buying there is a fun opportunity in an ideal world.
Yes.
And that's not to say there shouldn't be some in-character rewards. Not wrong about that. But it does just weirdly change some of the incentives and the mechanics. Because people want to go on skirmishes because fundamentally they're fun. They're not, that's the primary reason people go. It's one of the reasons why mercenaries are really hard to make work in a LARP game.
Yeah.
Because they would pay you to have that opportunity to have a fight, and you can't be a mercenary and pay people to fight for them.
No, I mean, for me, I like the stories that you get out of it. It's something that I love about the game is you're sitting around a fire, and it's a pretty dull thing if you're just sat there going, so what did you do? Well,
yeah.
I walked over there, I had a bit of a beer over there, and that was about it, really. But then going, I went on this skirmish to go off and do this, I went on the skirmish to go and do that. Loads of story spread, and I mean, for me personally, that's what I LARP for. I love to hear
war stories.
Yeah, well, not even that. One of our new players in the community, a guy called Kyle, went off for his very first player event last weekend.
Awesome.
And he's a priest, and he caused so many. He was involved in so much. He literally spent an hour telling me all of his stories from that event, and it was incredible.
Awesome.
And not one war. It wasn't combat, nothing like that at all.
No.
And it was amazing. He had so much fun.
War stories is that LARP term, isn't it, to describe those cool, icy moments that are just, your stories of epic that happened to you.
Yeah. Yeah,
cool.
Definitely. It was really, really good. He absolutely. I think he blew everyone away. So, thanks for the subs, everybody who's done it. I've forgotten the names of the people who have done it, so I think we've gained a few. So, right, I'm about half of chat behind at the moment.
Okay.
With questions and stuff. So, it's not. There's positives thing there saying that people are trusting you to do this and everything like that. So with regards to COVID, but there's positive messages for you. there. So,
Yeah, I saw a really nice comment from Tom Garnett today, which was really touching. And he said, "Look, I trust, trust Matt PD to make us, at least consider this decision in detail and think about it.
yeah,
And the fact that they're clearly struggling with it is kind of an indication they're taking it seriously. It wasn't quite the wording he used, but it was something like that. And I was very moved by that. Anyway, we'll do our best
yeah,
to repay that trust, but."
yeah,
The worst bit is knowing that whatever decision we make, a bunch of people are going to be disappointed. That is the worst part of it. Inevitably, if you run LARP, you're a pleaser. You want people to be happy. That's kind of what you're trying to do. So, and whatever decision we make, if we cancel, a bunch of people will be unhappy. If we run it, a bunch of people will be unhappy.
yeah.
And it isn't about, pandering to anyone.
No.
But in a normal world, it's like, right, how can I make those people event awesome? What can I do for that group of people to make their event awesome?
Yeah.
You can tailor solutions so different people get different things out of it.
Yeah.
Can't do that here. We either run or we don't run.
Yeah, I think that's. I mean, you're doing something when you've created something so big that there's no way that you can make 100% of people happy. Because when you see on Facebook after an event where you get the hots and knots that everyone does, there would be no knots there at all. It would just be hots from everybody. But do you find that when you set up events and you work on plot and things like that everything is aspirational with regards to that as well, that you're seeing like any criticisms that come through from people and you're taking it all on board and you're working on more and more and more, changing things to tailor in a way?
I mean, certainly, I think if you're running any LARP game, it's aspirational. I mean, one of the things, I've always said is if you run a LARP event and nothing went wrong, you weren't trying hard enough. That's my view. If nothing goes wrong, you just clearly weren't pushing yourself. It sounds stupid, but in an entire weekend where you're trying new things and pushing it and trying to do more than you've ever done before and trying to run a better event than something somewhere will go wrong. You can't push the boat, every single boat out, and then have everyone sail across the lake. That isn't how life works.
No.
So I do believe that if nothing goes wrong, and I've always said, it's like, look, if I wanted to run an event where nothing went wrong, that'd be a piece of piss. I wouldn't try. I'd just be like, yeah, we'll just dial in, phone in a 5, and nothing will go wrong. But so things will go wrong. That's point number one, because it is aspirational. You're pushing yourself all the time. And weirdly, it's often the things where you really push the boat out that are amazing and people love. And it's the stuff that you've taken you out of the ball, of course, that people are unhappy with. But, I think of some of the aspirational stuff we've done, like the Marcher Burning Man, which was mind-blowing.
Yeah.
The Wintermark Snake, the Fire Snake, where they went off down to the Caladesi marshes. It's just... even as the guy nominally organising the event, I was just like, this, I ain't never seen anything like it. This is mind-blowing.
Yeah.
It was just incredible. And actually, ironically, in both cases, not that much to do with us. It was the people involved who were pushing that. But that's always the case in LARP. It's aspirational. You try really hard. We sort of look at what people are saying, sort of. I think if you're running LARP, you've got a vision and you've got a concept of what you're trying to do, and you've got a vision thing, and you think, this is what we're trying to deliver. We're not a focus group company. We're not sit down and focus group 20 LARPers and see what they like.
No.
It's like, no. We've got a vision of what we want to do, and we're going to roll it out, and we hope people like it. And we'll try and roll out different things because we want a big game with lots of people in it. And I really like the fact that Empire's got different things in it for different people, but fundamentally we've got a picture of what we're trying to do, and we try to build to that picture.
Definitely.
But it is aspirational. We're always trying to improve it and do more and push it, and
it's the plot I've found, for me personally, the plot that I've been involved in is the plot that I'm naturally going to fall into in game, and because that's the sort of areas that I'm involved with and stuff like that. So, but you hear about other people's bits of plot that they're involved in. It's like, oh, that sounds amazing. I'm never going to get involved in anything like that ever. I'm going to go over there and do my thing. Cheers, thanks, you enjoy. And that's literally the way it goes. But you see people who have joined the game and they want to get involved in everything and as much as they can, as quickly as they can. And you see them probably on the, like 10, 11 o'clock Friday evening, knackered. Because they've tried to do so much. And it's like, I can't carry on. I'm going to go and sit down, have a beer, and then I'll find something else to do tomorrow. So it's really nice that there's also, I mean, there's a lot of stuff out there as well.
I think, you know, if you're running a Fest game, your starting point has to be, and this is going to sound really weird, but your starting point has to be that this will be boring. Because you've got 48, 70 hours of game to fill.
Yep.
For 2,000 people. So you're trying to entertain 2,000 people for 70 hours, 72 hours, whatever it is, I know.
Yeah.
It's a long time. You can't put out enough plot to fill that time. You can't do it. Certainly we can't do it. And it's a logistical impossibility. We've only got 20, 30 NPCs. 20, 30 NPCs aren't going to keep 2,000 people entertained for a weekend. The number ratios don't work. So what you're trying to do is create the conditions where people will be excited about the plot that is happening and will all be talking to each other. And you hope that you can put enough plot in the field that the conversations that follow on from that will keep as many people engaged as you can. And within that, then there'll be some people, and indeed I've had emails of people going, oh, you timetabled this against this, and I wanted to do both. And then the response generally is like, yeah, I ain't got to apologise for the fact you were too busy. That's a feature, not a bug. Because for every player that is too busy, somewhere there's a player kind of going, oh, I'm struggling to get involved. I'm struggling to find something to do. You know, I want every single player to be rushed off their feet for every single minute of the event. When that happens, I'll be like, okay, enough. but it's got to be all 2,000 players to reach that point.
Yeah. So Ben's got an interesting question for you. This is quite a nice one. Do you have any rough idea from ticket sales how many brand new players will be coming to their first event?
I don't have a clue. I don't have a clue for 2 or 3 reasons. The first is that we've cancelled the tickets, and what we did previously was we moved them on to the next event.
Yeah.
What we've done this time is we've turned them into open tickets. So now I don't really have a clue how many people are coming to the next event, which is a slightly interesting position to be in. Every good plan has a flaw.
Yes.
The time to ask that is really kind of after the first event that we have back, and I can tell you at that point, this many people, and it'd be interesting to look, this many people came to their first event. I don't know. We were getting a couple of hundred new players an event previously, and now we haven't had an event for nearly 2 years. Do we have 2 years backlog of new players?
I hope so.
I hope so. It would be amazing, but I got to assume it won't quite pan out like that.
Yeah.
But it's back to something you were talking about earlier. New players are amazing because they come with such enthusiasm. You know, us old players with the best will in the world can be a bit jaded and a bit like, I've seen it all before. You know, new players come and they've got a kind of bright-eyed, wow, this is amazing. And LARP runs on enthusiasm. It is powered by belief and by passion and enthusiasm. So, you know, new players are just brilliant for the game because they just bring in a kind of wide-eyed optimism and a kind of, wow, this is amazing, I want to do it all. And that's, it's just great. It's great.
Yeah, I'll be quite interested. So for any new players watching, if you just type me into chat, and then when we get down to it, we can have a little quick count off of how many of the people here are coming to their first new event as a brand new player next time round. Just to give you a rough idea from the people watching this stream anyway. Fuck me, there's loads. It's already filled my screen.
If there's any new players with questions, shout them out. That'd be good too.
I think the majority of them are. So You've got Becca, brand new player. What are your thoughts on player events, sanctioned and not, with a lot of new players attending those first, possibly getting involved in plot that way with other players?
It's really, really interesting. So on the one hand, I get quite worried because I think, and this isn't a criticism of play events, but particularly at the moment, I mean, we actually did sanction plot for a couple that happened, are happening this weekend. What even is time anymore? I
know,
think,
right?
yeah, the weekend just gone. The weekend just gone
Yeah.
was when a couple of 2 or 3 sanctioned events went off, and they had plot that was approved by us and passed, and stuff was happening. So they're like what I would consider a regular live role playing event. A lot of people run player events where it's just a social, and what they're doing is they're picking up off this kind of the residue of the plot from the main events. People want to chat, discuss politics, and talk, and they're great because they give everyone a chance to do yet more Empire. But the nervousness is always that if you go there as a brand new player, there's a risk that there isn't enough to get you involved. That you won't have that chance to really see what it's like with battles and politics and where it's actually happening live during the event. So on the one hand, I do worry that if you go to a player event and actually you don't enjoy it, you think, oh, is that all there is? Then there's a risk. Weighed against that, the first time I ever went to a large-scale fest game, I went to a player event. I didn't go to the mainline game. And people who were pretty generous with their time took the time to get me involved and get me into what was going on. And I had a whale of a time. And then I had a better time when I went to the main event because I'd found my footing and I knew some people and it gave me some plans and some stuff that I could role play with and get on. So I think it can work the other way. I think it can be a real positive. It can let you dip your toe in the water. It can let you try something in a kind of, it's going to sound terrible, but it's like swimming in the shallow end instead of jumping in the deep end. It is it's a smaller event. It's less intimidating. It's easier to sort of, and also people are not quite so busy and are not scattered over a site that's like half a mile long. So if you meet someone, you can probably find them 5 minutes later, which you probably won't be able to do when come Empire.
No.
So I hope it's a positive. At the end of the day, I ain't any choice because there isn't any other mainline events at the moment. So if you want to go to an event, go and enjoy it and engage with it. But hopefully, even if you think, oh, I'm not sure, you'll still give Empire a try because I think it is different, a mainline event. There is more going on than in a simple social event.
Yeah.
And that's not to critique the socials. They can be really cool. And they've got a lot of opportunity to do things we can't. People have them in amazing settings and amazing, some of the high guard ones have just been in jaw-dropping settings. I went to one in Glasgow that was in this amazing kind of church building thing. It was just stunning. And of course, we can't do that. We don't have that.
No.
2,000 people in a church. But yeah, so they can do things we can't.
Yeah. There's, I think they've got the High Guard have got one coming up in the plan for February as well, which is in the Roman baths.
Yes, yeah. The bathhouses.
Yeah, which looks amazing. That one's I'm gonna try to get to that one myself.
I love seeing those things because again, there is, there's an adventurousness. People are pushing the limits. They're taking risks and going for it and going, well, what if we ran an event like this? I remember years ago I had a conversation with a friend of Bill Thomas, who's a friend of mine in filming and stuff. And I think her job was finding locations for filming. And she was like, you can hire a tube station at midnight for like £9,000. You could run a zombie game in a London tube station at 2 a.m. or something. And I'm like, wow, that sounds mad. But amazing.
Yeah.
Just crazy, but cool. I don't know whether it's true or not, but the point is that pushing yourself. And I think if you're running we try to push ourselves to work at the scale we're at. What I really like is when sanctioned events and small events push themselves to do stuff they can do that we never could. And a great example is the sanctioned event run by, I think it's Tony Porteous and his team, who ran one just about the medics, and they took the critical wounds system that we had and they just built on it, and they built an entire event around it. And I'm like, take my hat off. They took risks. They pushed the boat, and that's great to see.
That's amazing. So we got Rachel says, given the amount of time that has passed, is there any way PD will help facilitate people getting back into their plot lines?
Yes. Yes, after we've worked out how we're going to get back into the plot lines. Yeah, that's going to be a challenge, is the honest truth. It's ironic that we produced that beautiful little sort of in-character booklet that kind of summed up everything happening in the campaign to date, the almanac, and where it's up to and what's the current affairs in the world. Sent it all out to everyone and then cancelled nearly 2 years of the events. We'll do what we can. It's a question of how. One of the issues for us is that Empire is already a game where the amount of reading you have to do can be quite off-putting to some players. You go, all you need to do is produce 50,000 words summarising the campaign today and bring everyone up to speed. You're like, right, okay, so that's another 50,000 words people have got to read. What everyone wants, of course, is to be personally just reminded of what they need to know, and that isn't easy.
No.
So we are aware of the problem. We're very aware of the problem. I'm not sat here with a whole load of answers, but it is something we're looking at. So a bit like the Prime Minister, if you've got any good ideas, email them in. I'm all ears about how we could do that. My sense is that people are going to be very generous at the first event back. There's going to be a lot of like, your name, you're my best friend of 20 years, and I can't remember your name. I think people will. I expect people will be pretty accommodating.
I think so. I think a lot of people in the groups have been slowly trying to get to know everyone again. I can't remember probably a third of my haul. I can't remember. I remember their player names. Can't remember the character names.
Having a good memory is about to become a superpower.
It really is. It's terrifying.
But to answer the question, yes, we are aware of the problem. We're thinking about it. If there's there's some ideas we have, but it isn't easy. It's not an easy problem to solve. No. We are also struggling with it. We're like, oh my god, can we remember everything we're doing? It's non-trivial.
Yeah. So Dawn's asked. I think you've covered this one already. What are some of your favourite player-generated moments from Empire, storylines or longer impact?
Gosh, where do you start? I suspect I would never give the same answers twice. I thought when the Winter Markers gave Scarsind away, that was epic. Just epic. And we put a lot of roadblocks in their way. We were like, no, you can't do this. And they were like, no, we really want to do this. And it hurt. The thing I think is really nice about Empire is that sacrifice has consequences. For Wintermark, giving up Scarsind was it cost them dear. And I think at the point where they went through with it, they really knew that. Yeah. And I'm not trying to criticise, but in a one-off game or in a game where the setting isn't as persistent and isn't as real, you can make some big noble gesture and give some great thing that you give away, and it doesn't really cost you anything because the consequences of that generosity aren't really realised. And I think one of the strengths of Empire is that you get very realistic behaviour, because if you make a decision and it costs you, then you feel that cost very dearly. So Scarsind was amazing. I loved the role play. I loved what people did. I loved the fact that we put roadblocks and they went, yeah, we see your roadblock and we go through it. And there's nothing more appealing as an organiser than when you go, well, you could do this, but we're going to make it really difficult. And then the players go, we're going to do it anyway. Because some things should be difficult. Some things in a game should be hard. If everything is a cakewalk, the game isn't very interesting. But the big risk is that if you make something in character difficult, one of the things I found over the years is people take that as an out-of-character signal that PD don't want you to do that. Of course, it's like, no, if I want an out-of-character signal that we don't want you to do that, I'll just put a note up saying, no, out of character, we don't want you to do this. I make things in character difficult so that when you achieve them, because A, they should be difficult, and B, then when you do it, it is an enormous accomplishment. So, the players changed the rules of the Empire. They made something possible that hadn't been possible before. They changed the powers of the Senate. They changed the Constitution. They changed the way the world worked.
Yeah.
And they did it to make some enormous sacrifice to help the orcs. And I don't know what more Empire could be about than that sort of thing. It's about giving people a world and going, it's yours now. If you break it, well, you bought it.
Yeah, it's probably already fairly broken, I think, and that's lovely.
Yeah.
It creates so much. But there
so,
you go.
yeah, I
Wintermark
love
have done the
that.
best thing in game. Have that.
The Burning Man, the Wicker Man.
Yeah.
Yes, we were the ones or our team got, Piri and the others involved, and they built the Wicker Man, and we built it up. But fundamentally, it kind of came out of the fact that some, one player was like, yeah, I think my character should go into the Wicker Man. And we were like, great, we've been waiting for this moment. Do you want us to make it as awesome as we can? And so, again, that's a case where one person did one tiny little sacrifice with his character, and it just created an entire field of awesome for 200 players, or 100 players, whatever. There's so many. I could just sit here all night and talk about the amazing things people do.
One day. One day.
But that Scarsin, there's a good one. That was awesome.
So there are two questions here, and I'd like to thank Joe and Becca for bringing up the Hefty Yeti community for obvious reasons. Very. So Joe's asked, what is your favourite part of the Hefty fam, so the Hefty Yeti community? And Becca has asked, what do you think about how the Hefty fam has grown since your last interview on here? Is it more intimidating? Because the average viewer that we had last time we were on was, I think it was 36, 37 people. We've got double that in stream at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, firstly, I think it's fantastic. I think, and it's really nice for me because obviously we haven't run any events for a year and a half. If we run September, it will be 2 years since we ran an event. And so there is a part of you that worries that everybody will have just gone away and got on with their lives and Empire, oh yeah, that's a thing I did 2 years ago, whatever, moved on. I hope that isn't going to happen, but obviously that is a fear I have to live with. So to find out, to come back on your channel and for you to be going, oh yeah, we've doubled in size and X and Y, and it's just really, really reassuring for me. It's like, okay, great. When we do get an event, people are going to turn up. So it's really nice. It is really nice. And also it's nice to see communities coming together and building new ways to talk and discuss and communicate. LRP is all about community. The difference occasionally when I talk to people in officialdom, like in planning and licensing, I have to explain this isn't like a festival. It's not like a music festival.
No.
It's not like 2,000 people I've never met are going to turn up in a field and get pissed. That is not what's happening. Every single person who is at that event will know someone who knows someone who knows me. It's 2 to 3 degrees of freedom of connection at most to every single person in the field. Most people in the field probably know someone who knows me if they don't know me personally. It's not that long since I was running events where I would try and know everybody who was there. It is so, and that is an amazing community, and it's just nice that it's big enough now that there's a Hefty community and. That it's developing little sub-communities that have been part of the bigger thing. Am I intimidated? No, but I'm not really intimidated by anything. So I have an ego the size of a planet, so not a lot intimidates me.
That's awesome. I just rushed down to count how many me's that we had quickly. If I've missed any, there's 22.
Awesome. That's awesome.
22 new players just here.
Here.
So who knows?
Yeah.
Who knows how many else are going to be out there? So Triz has asked, when are we sneaking in Skaven?
I love Skaven. I love them from the tips of their scaveny little ears right the way down to their warpstone and cheese. I've played a Skaven in a LARP game and it was amazing.
Yeah.
But we are not going to see them in Empire for two reasons.
Sad times.
Sad times, quite well, yeah. I mean, one is that the Skaven Skaven are one of the most iconic Games Workshop creations, in my opinion. They've done a lot with the Warhammer setting that's really quite interesting. I love the slan. I just think there's that kind of decaying Aztec amphibian thing is just amazing. I thought the slan were incredible, but I love the rats and the great horn rat and the warp seers and all of the mythology. And you've got to remember that in a world where a lot of role-play mythology is just endlessly recycled pap,
to see a hype train.
It's really, really nice to see a world like Warhammer Fantasy create something that's really quite original and built from the ground up. But the point is, that's then their thing. That's their thing. You can't put a Skaven into Empire without thinking about the Great Horn Rat and the Grey Seers and all the rest of it in Warpstone. And we would it's just too iconic for that game. So we would never do Skaven. We had a discussion about Ratmen, but it ain't happening.
No,
So.
it is a shame. I have to admit, going back to the old PlayStation 1 game, the Shadow of the Horned Rat, the really, really old one. I used to love playing that. Could never complete it, but loved playing that game. And like in the new Total War 2 as well, playing the Skaven in that as well. They're great fun.
They are fantastic, and they're a lot of fun to roleplay. Huge fun to roleplay, but they're iconic. They are absolutely iconic to Games Workshop's world.
Yeah,
and I think it would be very hard to reimagine them without bringing across so much of that baggage. You look at something like Orcs, and Tolkien's Orcs with the white hand or the lidless eye are iconic. But there's Games Workshop Orcs, there's Warhammer 40k Orcs, there's Warhammer Fantasy Battles Orcs, there's Tolkien Orcs. There's so many different Orcs that there's a space to reinvent your own and go, these are our Orcs. And I think there isn't that space with Skaven. Maybe one day in the future when 20 different games have done Skaven. Yes.
So you cut out there briefly.
Oh, right.
For a second.
I don't know.
Just saying, about 20 games playing Skaven, then this sort of like...
Yeah, if once there's a lot of more mythologies, and once thinking about a talking rat doesn't make you think about the Great Horn Rat, then I think there's a space there for more creativity with them.
Yeah. I mean, part of me jumps immediately to Splinter, I have to admit. That was parts of my childhood more than Games Workshop. Turtles and stuff.
Fair.
So, but that's the thing. We got thanks everyone for the bits and the stuff, the donations and everything like that. We're currently saving to do like a big new player giveaway again. We're currently sat at 174 quid.
Wow.
And we go to pretty much the traders that go into the field. So we do regular props and Darkblade. They're the bigger ones that we do, but we try to do as many as we can, and then we just buy it up, and then we do who wants to win stuff. You do great. Here you go. Have that. You have that. You have that, and stuff. So
that's awesome.
Yeah. So we've given away. We gave away a 4-meter bell tent a few months back. To someone, so we're doing pretty well. It's constantly growing. That was actually part of that raffle. So yeah. So it's growing. We're growing all the time. So this is Big Daddy Drew.
Hi, Big Daddy Drew.
Matt, in one of the early chats with Andy Raff, you both talked about the game having fewer nations, and some of the nations we know in game were going to be rolled into each other. Which nations with which archetypes are going to be paired, if you can remember?
I think you're misquoting me there. So I think the way the conversation roughly went is this: when we created Empire, first of all, we spent 3 years creating Empire, so that's something to bear in mind. It was a big project. But essentially, we started with a load of ideas, and we worked on it for about a year and a half, and then we threw all those ideas in the bin, and we started again. And then, so we started afresh, and then we came up with a set of new ideas. And during that process, there was a clearly intention was that the weakest ideas would get cut, or that we would roll weaker ideas into it. We'd take like one or two of the weaker ideas and put them together. And what happened is and every game organizer, every person who's ever written a game goes through this. You think, yeah, I'll come up with some ideas and I'll cut the weaker ones. And you never do. You never do, because you fall in love with them during your process. How could you not? How could you spend a year and a half creating something and then not fall in love with the thing you've created? I don't know if you could even do that. So by the time it got to the point of, well, what are we going to cut? What are we going to merge? What are the weaker ideas? We were like, well, we love it all. So, why would we cut one piece? This doesn't make any sense. There wasn't a piece that was obviously like, yeah, we deaded it all and that bit's shit. So, it's got to go. We were in love with it all by the end. So I don't think there was ever a kind of, there was a meta plan of, we'll develop 10 cool concepts and then bin one or two of the worst at the end. That was the kind of plan, but it wasn't through the process. We were like, oh yeah, it's clearly that one that's going to go. The reality was, we got to the end of it and we didn't want to get rid of anything. So it all just stayed in. Could we have cut something? No. Yeah. Would it be better? Maybe. Possibly not.
I love the fact that you've created something where there's some nations are more fond of other nations than they are. You've created all of that, and it's all grown from the game you've made. I don't think I could imagine the same game now, where if you suddenly came into the game, it's like, oh yeah, due to all the battles and stuff like this, the marches have now been utterly destroyed and no longer exist. Just as an example, but I don't think I could imagine walking into that field now and going, well, where are all the potato people gone? I'm not going to go to their bar anymore. I can't sit down there and drink and make dumb bets with people anymore. I can't do that now. It's like, that's a part of my game's gone. It's just like,
I think certainly once the game is up and running, there's no question you're just going to come along and cut something. That would be madness.
Yeah.
Although in theory, there's always the possibility that a nation will get wiped out by the orcs, but I don't think it's very likely. But it could happen. It's a political game. It's PvP. It's player-led. They could go, you know what? Let's abandon Wintermark to the Yetoon. Let's make peace with the Yetoon and give them all Wintermark, and we'll just do without that nation. I don't think that's going to happen. But if it did, we as the organisers would have to roll with it, because if we don't roll with it, we'll just go, no, well, yeah, no, that's a valid political decision, but we're not going to allow it, which would just be bollocks. It would undermine everything.
Yeah.
So the point is, there's always a potential, but I don't think it would happen.
No.
I think it's really unhelpful now to think in terms of, well, what would you cut? It's just like, I don't think, I love every part of it.
Yeah. So how do you feel about like potential? I suppose it's in the same sort of vein, like in civil wars within nations and things.
Yeah, it'll happen at some point. I remember in the early years, sitting down at a player event, and some players were discussing seceding from the Empire. And I was kind of smiling a bit and going, that'll be interesting. It's like, because of course and so we had a discussion about it as a game team and go, well, what would we do if a nation secedes? And it's like, well, it's obvious what would happen. The surrounding barbarian orc nations would go, X has seceded from the Empire. Let's make peace with the Empire and invade X. Because X is now a very weak target. So logically, if you seceded from the Empire, let's say the League, not the League's a poor choice. Let's say Brass Coast secedes from the Empire and goes, we're going to secede. We've had enough. If I were the Grendel, I'd be rubbing my hands with glee and being like, I'd be straight over to the Empire going, I'm really sorry that we got off on the wrong foot with all this conflict. It's time for us to sit down and talk like friends about having a long peace treaty that we can always both stick to. You'd like Spiral back? That's very reasonable. It's very reasonable. Definitely you can have Spiral back. Just don't interfere in our war with the Brass Coast, with the newly independent nation of Brass Coast. And we'll give you anything you want. And then we just make those players deal with that consequence of 8-9 Grendel armies and navies attacking them.
Yeah, that could be a really interesting one to... I mean, part of me wants to see something like that happen, saying, right, Saturday's battle is Brass Coast versus the Grendel. Can all the other nations can all the other nations please turn up to fight against the Brass Coast? So 700 orcs, and the Brass Coast sat there going, "Well, shit."
We wouldn't do it like that because that's no fun. But and I don't know how we would do it logistically. I genuinely have no idea. We'd find some ways to do something, but we would make you deal with the strategic consequences of your action. And at some point there'll be a civil war. I love the idea that at some point someone's going to submit an army order that says, I take my League army and I invade Miarin, and seize control of Miarin. And we'll be like, yeah, we'll process that. And it'll have big ramifications and there'll be some consequences and people will be very angry and people will shout at people. And that to me, and it may never happen. Never happen. It could happen twice at the first event back. The joy of running player-led stuff, that the absolute pleasure is you never have a freaking clue what the players are going to do.
No.
It's a surprise. So to me, it's running Empire is surprising as watching Game of Thrones at the point where you haven't read the books. It's like, I don't know what's going to happen next. Yeah. I know what the orcs are going to do. I know what the world is going to do, but I have no idea what the heroes are going to do.
I remember touching on what you've said while taking it. There's a specific incident involving the Navarre and one of their armies and a barbarian nation.
Yes, there is.
Yeah, that was interesting, and I remember the fallout from that and the interesting one from that one. But that's, I think, that a prime example of when one player decides, you know what, let's do this instead. I am totally 100% with that. The reason you create a game like Empire is so that somehow a player will go, you know what, I'm going to do this instead. Everyone in the world wants me to do A, and I'm going to do B. Yeah. Everyone will have to suck it up. That's where the drama of the game comes from, and those moments live forever. And if you're a player and you're faced with that, remember the fact, if you do B and everyone in the world wanted you to do A, you will be infamous at the next event. A lot of people will be very, very, very angry with you, but you will be infamous, and the things you have done will go down in legend. Oh yeah.
And that's cool. I think it's like,
oh yeah, it was. Yeah. I remember the conversations with the person in question. And out of character, it was just like, it was amazing. That was so cool. And it's like, in character, we're gonna have a very different conversation though. And it's like building it up, and it was amazing. It was absolutely incredible. I mean, what was the reaction from PD when obviously you're going through all the orders, and then you get to that one, and it's just like, what the fuck is this?
Yeah, I don't actually remember. Were we surprised? Sort of. I mean, you're always a bit surprised. There's a lovely moment for us, just to let you know how this works. Graham gets all the orders. Graham is part of our game team, Graham Jameson. He turns up to the military council and takes all the orders away from the generals. So he knows what all the Imperial armies have done.
Yeah.
And what he does after that, he sits me and Andy down and he says, right, where are all your orc armies going? And we are like, and me and Andy are like, oh yeah. And we talk about what the Yatoon are doing and we'll plan the Yatoon armies. And then we move on to the Grendel. I'm generally more the guy behind the Grendel and a bit the Yatoon. We do 50-50. Andy's much more the Druge and the Thule. He's more of a handle on them. But we took, so me and Andy basically, we submit all our orc army moves, and then Graham tells us what the players have done, and there's always a bit like, oh my god, shit, and it's just great. It's just fantastic at this kind of. It's just like a little board game moment of reveal all your orders and find out what the other team have done. And it's we're not trying to win. What we want is for dramatic shit to happen. I don't give a crap if we win or lose. In fact, in a sense, you kind of deep down you're rooting for the players. You kind of want the players to win. But it's just fun. It's just a lot of fun when he does his little reveal of kind of, what have the Imperial armies done, and it's all done over there. I mean, it takes us a couple of hours to submit our orders for our orcs, and then 20 minutes for him to tell us what the Empire have done. And then there's a bit of a kind of like, And the irony is, we still don't know what will happen. We still don't know what will happen because you have to run the downtime to find out where 500, 600, 700 military captains have taken their military units. Because I can virtually guarantee you it's that in the end that will swing the campaign one way or the other. All the close ones always come down to where did those players send their military units. So actually, although there's a whole load of, oh my shit, they've done this, oh my god, I didn't think they did, oh crap, they've done that. Or sometimes we'll have attacked and they've moved all their armies out. We're like, oh, that's going to go badly for the Empire. It goes both ways. But often, at the moment there's a big combat or a big campaign and there's armies on both sides, we don't actually know then what will happen. No. So we don't find out till after downtime when I can go, okay, 238 players supported this, or whatever the numbers are.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's great. So, do you want the question about Armour now?
Oh, go on. Yeah, let's have a question about Armour.
Excellent. So, Matt has asked, have PD received any particularly interesting interpretations of the new Armour rules, and what constitutes looking metallic?
Yes, we've had some queries around that point. There's a lot of discussion about brigandines and whether a brigandine looks like it's metal or not. And there's a lot of debate over, because obviously, for those who don't know, the traditional brigandine consists of metal plates that are riveted to the inside of cloth. The whole thing hangs together with cloth. So if you're looking at it from the outside, what you see is the cloth. But if you know that it's a brigandine, then you know that it's got metal plates inside. We've had some queries about that. I had a 2-hour meeting with Graham today about brigandines. Woo! There's always, when you bring in some new rules, there's always some edge cases. Yeah. There's always a bit of like, oh, well, yeah, and clarifications. We'll put some facts. In all honesty, it wasn't that much. It really wasn't. It wasn't like... I don't know. Most of those queries go to Graham, so he might have handled them all without ever needing to talk to me. But as far as I'm aware, there wasn't there wasn't a lot of people kind of bemused or pushing the envelope, or I think there were just some legitimate questions around, well, where do brigandines sit in this, and how will you handle that we had to get to the bottom of. Yeah.
Because I have to admit, I have already bought the Dreadnought skill, so
I was really pleased to see how many people rushed out to buy the Dreadnought skill on account of the fact that the name was awesome. I love my player base. Quite a few people were like, yeah, but it's called Dreadnought. How cool is that? It's like, I get to be a Dreadnought. It's just... and you can sort of, for all the world, you can go, yeah, but it's one extra hit, and it's like, yeah, you could be reductionist about it, but you can only be so reductionist about LARP before it doesn't make any sense anymore. It's like, you're not really a great Navarre hero. You're really just a guy dressed up in a costume. You know, the more reductionist you are about it, the less anything makes sense anymore. And I was overwhelmed by the number of people going, yeah, but it's called Dreadnought. That's awesome. I want that skill. and it's like, I just think it's a great way to think about it. And yeah, a lot of people, I had people dropping artisan items to take that skill.
Really?
So, people were like, yeah. I've already done my skill drop for this event, but now this new skill's coming. I really want that skill. So can you give me an extra 3 drop of X so that I can, you know, as per the rules about you can email in, because I really want that skill right now. And equally, obviously, a load of people will be sat there going, Dreadnought is the worst skill in the entire game. It's not worth it. And that's great. That's absolutely great. You know, you've got something about right when a load of people think it's brilliant and a load of people think it's awful. Because if everybody thinks it's awful, then it probably is awful. And if everybody thinks it's brilliant, then it's probably underpriced. You know, there's a kind of field testing in the middle where you go, this might be too cheap. Everyone has taken it.
I was very pleased to see the 1 XP for that one. I was very pleased. So, great name. Extra hit. Yeah, it works. For someone who's just, worked perfectly. Very happy with it myself. And we have had discussions in the Discord from people who have gone the other way and aren't happy and that, but it's, there'll
be a load of people for whom it's a terrible skill and it's a waste of points and blah, blah, blah. And that's fine. Empire's, you know, in and out of character, you get to make choices. You get to build your character the way you want it. It's a points-based system. Buy the skills you want.
Yeah, definitely. So, new player, Matt, Digby, he's built his entire character around a certain giant
Is
hole.
that mowing really obnoxious on the channel? Because I can shut my windows.
I can barely hear it.
Okay,
chat, let us know. Can't hear it, so that's fine. It's fine. Yeah,
I've moved my mic, so my mic's facing away from it.
Okay. Matt Digby, he has built his a big part of his character coming into Anvil for the first time is about a certain giant sinkhole.
Okay.
And it's more focused on that. He says, "Are you prepared for an angry farmer to take the field at a future event, yelling about a hole?" Taking it to the senators, I guess, and.
Yeah, totally. It's cool to turn up at Empire with a clear thing of what your character is about, you know, and being angry about the sinkholes. Ace. I mean, you want to think about, well, what can anyone do about that? Because Empire is a game in which people can do things in certain circumstances, and if they can't, then you won't actually get as much traction as you might. All the play space is in, can we do something about this? Okay, we can. Should we do something about it? That's where the really interesting elements of the game are. What are the costs and what are the benefits? But absolutely, people coming into the game with agendas is what Empire's about. It's, you know, we've just spent, feels like weeks, writing pages and pages for Urizen about their archetypes, which were all a little bit underdeveloped. And we've done a massive chunk of work on it. But, you know, a chunk of every single page that we wrote for each archetype was like, have some big ideas that you're turning up at the event that you want to do, and finding 10 different ways to say that. So, am I prepared for an angry farmer? I am prepared for an angry farmer.
There you go, Matt. There you go, Digby. You go for it.
Go for it.
That's really good. So, Dennis has asked, not a very serious question. When is Abraham going to put into motion his plans to eradicate the Imperial Orcs?
Yeah, I mean, Abraham has no powers to submit motions, so I think if you're waiting for Abraham to submit a motion, you'll be waiting a long time. That motion would be unconstitutional, and Abraham would be the first person to tell you that. So, you know, there's a couple of issues. But Abraham is highborn, and he is perhaps, on a personal level, not as civil about the lineage to the Orcs as one might expect of a chief magistrate, not a chief magistrate, but a constitutional magistrate. He has his little personal biases, but I try to keep them to myself. I had again amusing many years ago of a sanctioned event I was at, and it was a Marcher sanctioned event, and they were doing a little bit of kind of trash talking of the Briars because certain parts of the Marchers don't really like the Briars very much, and someone suggested like, oh, maybe we could pass a law saying that Briars couldn't hold an imperial office, and they all kind of looked at me expecting me as Abraham to be like, oh no, you can't do that, and I was like, or could pass a law saying no lineage can hold imperial office, because obviously I'm playing a highborn and we're quite prejudiced against all the lineage, and they're all like, can we do that? And I was like, constitutionally, no. Doesn't mean I don't want you to. I have a lot of fun playing Abraham. He's not putting a motion in anytime soon, and that motion would be unconstitutional, which is what Abraham would tell you.
Excellent. Dennis has said, what a guy. So Max has asked, with Empire being a live game, I am happy to see updates come in and change and change the game for the better. With this being said, how do you tend to deal with the feedback from the community?
Yeah, it is a live game, and it's really, one of the things I'm really positive about is we've made changes to the game over the years. The previous game I ran, for those who are not familiar with the history, that I ran professionally, was a game called Maelstrom. And that didn't do any live updates. What it did was wait till something was definitely really broken badly, and then sort of bodge it and then break something else in the process. And we did a couple of kind of bad overhauls that didn't really add to the game. All they did was fix one thing and break another. And eventually the game just it had to come to an end because too much of it was broken. There comes a time when the car, if you don't maintain the car can't go anymore.
No.
And Maelstrom had a glorious end. We set the car on fire and it drove at 100 mile an hour over the line, burning merrily before it exploded, which we couldn't have asked for a better send off. But we didn't want to go that way with Empire, and so we really took the decision every year we'd go, right, what are we looking at? What can we improve? And we would take a piece of the game out and try and rebuild it and improve it and then put it back in. And what that does is it basically, we are maintaining the car.
Yeah.
It will, it absolutely extends the lifespan of the game. But the feedback is an interesting one. The feedback takes a couple of forms. I mean, firstly, when we get it right, we will speak to someone before we do a change. So we'll do a lot of consultation, and that will inform our process. Yeah. A few years back, we did a big change to some of the pre-skills and the cards and how that worked. And we did a lot of consultation. That fed back, it improved what we did, and we released it. And we kind of braced for impact. And everyone was like, oh, yeah, good, change that. And that was it. There was almost no feedback. And we were so flush with that we then made a minor change to the Varushkan election system. And the players were like, ah! And we didn't speak to anyone. We said, oh, yeah, great, we'll do that. Which shows perfectly the foolishness of the poorly thought through, poorly conceived change that isn't consulted with. So when we get it right, the feedback is generally pretty good. Obviously, if it's a big contentious change like the Armour change, there's a load of feedback. And I don't mean to sound critical, but nobody in all the feedback sent me a single point that we hadn't thought of and spent 18 months discussing. Right. With the best will in the world, nobody was like, but you haven't thought about X. It's like, yeah, we thought about that. This is it. So, I must have got maybe 30 or 40 emails. And it takes about an hour to respond to each one because, I send a long, full response. I go, this is why we've done this. And I'm not trying to defend people, but I try and put a case to people and respond. And so that, that's generally how we do it. But it doesn't always go like that. No. A couple of years back, we did the changes to the Dawn election system. And we consulted widely, we spoke to people, we improved it, and then we released it, and people were really unhappy. Yeah. And a bunch of people made some really good points about some shit we hadn't thought about. They were like, you have not considered this group of people. You have not thought about the group of people whom combat is their thing, who are, who are lacking in confidence or socially awkward or X or A or B, who are, for whom this big political game that you've made is opaque. And here was the one, and so the point is, they made some really good points that we hadn't thought about. And there we were like, those are good points. We're going to go away. We're going to take everything on board you said, and we're going to come back and release another version of this and try and take account and build for what you said.
Makes sense.
And then we did that. So, yeah, when the feedback reveals something we haven't thought about, well, then we take that straight on the chin, and we sit down and we basically go back to the drawing board and we redesign the whole thing again in light of what they said. And sometimes we come to the same answer, and sometimes we don't. But that is unusual, because when we get it right, we will spend months working on a change. We've been discussing the Armour rules were first discussed about 2 years ago, and it was kind of like, yeah. And then we'd come back to it, and we'd put it down, pick it up again, and come back to it, and put it down, and pick it up again.
Yeah.
And as time went on, the need to change it got more pressing, and the kind of analysis of the drawbacks of the change were like, actually, yes, it has all of these problems. It messes with Archery's game. It messes with the game of people who've just gone out and spent 500 quid on a suit of incredibly expensive steel armour. But none of those things can ever be fixed. There's no solution we could implement that wouldn't mess with the Archer's game. There's no solution that we could ever change to the Armour rules which would not have been a problem for all those people who just bought the armour. And so the reality was, at the point where we realised there is no perfect solution, at that point we were like, right, let's implement an imperfect solution, but it will be better than what we have now. And that's kind of how we deal with feedback. Mostly we just talk to people. I think the biggest thing is to explain what you're doing. If you try and explain what you're doing and why you're doing it, 80% of the player base will go with you. And then 10% of the rest will go with you when they sort of speak to you in person, and perhaps you don't pick, even if they don't agree with you. I often get people who will email me back going, well, I don't agree with you, but it's pretty clear you spent a lot of time thinking about this. And I'm like, yeah, you're not wrong. So, yeah, people, the other thing that fascinates me the most, with the Armour rules, I must have got 30 emails from people going, oh, I bet your inbox is on fire right now. And I'm like, no, not really. No. Generally, most people understood where we were coming from. Even the ones who didn't agree with what we did were not like, you're a monster for doing this. They could see the reasoning. They could see what we were trying to achieve. And most of our community is incredibly good. They want the best game they can.
Yeah.
And they're trying to make an argument for what they see as the best game.
Yeah.
And they're, and I like talking to players about the game. So, yeah,
that's
most
really
of the feedback's really good. It's really positive and engaging.
Good.
And,
Good.
And sometimes it makes points we have just not thought about, because we're good at this. I've been writing games for 20 years, like 16, 17 years professionally.
Yeah.
I'm as close to an expert as we'll get, but I'm not omniscient. I'm not, I make mistakes like everybody does. So
yeah.
Occasionally people will be like, and here's a thing you have not thought about. And we'll be like, you're right. Yeah.
But you listen to it. That's the point.
Yeah.
That's the big positive from it all.
And
isn't it?
The joy is, if you can just park your fucking ego, because that's the risk. Your ego comes out and you're like, well, my game's brilliant. How dare you criticise my game? And we're laughing now. You think that's ridiculous. I've got to tell you, most LARP organisers struggle to get past their own ego, and mine's the size of a planet. I told you that before, so I'm just the same as everyone else. But if you can park your ego and listen to people when they're saying something you haven't thought about, if you can just listen to them, you'll improve the game. The people who took the time to feed back to us about the Dawn election system and make their point made the game better. We ended up with a miles better game because those people fought for what they saw as an improve, and they were right about what would improve the game and what needed to be thought about.
Yeah.
And isn't that what we all want? We all
100%.
want Empire to be the best game you can. So actually, the people who really take time to think about it and engage, I really welcome it, because really every time someone emails me, the subtext of what they're saying is, I want to improve your game. I don't always agree with them, but that's what a feedback email is. Here's my ideas on how to improve your game.
I think it goes both. I think it goes all ways, though, doesn't it? It's like when, it's like if people, like when players, if they do something wrong in the game and then they get a contact just to go, you done this? What's happened? And they just go, oh shit, I didn't realise, sorry. And then it's just like it's a really positive thing. It's not like you hear at other LARPs, smaller LARPs, bigger LARPs, who cares? But from other groups, you'd say, where people have just gone, you've done this wrong, consider this as like your second warning, and do it again and you're gone, and stuff like that. It's all about being positive, because at the end of the day, it's positive. It's learning. It's a big learning thing, isn't it, sir?
Yeah. I'm certainly never going to fall out with someone because they've emailed me trying to improve the game.
No.
That'd be crazy. It is frustrating sometimes when you think you're not really listening to what I'm saying, or if you're struggling to try and get someone to appreciate that there's another part of the community that these rules are designed to benefit, and they're not perhaps empathizing with that group. That can be frustrating. But I always try and bear in mind, this person wants my game to be better. I want my game to be better. So we want the same thing. The question is, can we agree?
Yeah. Yeah.
And like I say, the Dawn election system, I think, is the best one in the game now by a mile. And part of how it got there was because a whole bunch of Dawn players went, no, Matt, you've got this wrong. You need to think about this. And they were right. They were just right. Yeah.
Excellent. So Kyle has asked a good question here. So do you think it's important that characters have areas of the field that they don't know? So this is an experience he had at a player event, like say a highborn having no clue what a penguin is. Well, it's an interesting example, Kyle. But like you're talking, it's like I've deliberately not read up, and so when you talk about the Dawn new Dawn election thing, I've deliberately not read up on the new rules for it, because as a player, I'm playing in Wintermark. I don't need to know how Dawn elect people. If I want to know how Dawn elect people, I'll go to them in the field and say, how do you elect people? And then they can explain to me in character. That's what I try to do as a player. Bit lazy, but it's something to go and talk to people about. But yeah, so how do you feel about players not knowing?
I'm all in favour of it. All in favour of it. There's assumption that the wiki is supposed to be read like a book, and that is the wrong. The wiki is supposed to be a wiki, the wiki in the real world, where you can go and look facts up.
Yeah.
There are parts of it that it's really useful. If you're playing a highborn character, you should be reading 7, 8, 9 of the pages about Highguard as a minimum. The culture and customs, the people, the overview. You want to read enough to be able to portray your character. Yeah. You don't need to know anything about Wintermark and its penguins, or the Marches and its the Brass Coast and its dolphins, or the Marches and their apples. None of that is a requirement to play the game. And you can argue, oh, well, that's unrealistic. And my counter would be, until recently we were in the European Union. I know that the French have a presidential system where they elect a president, and then there's also, I'm vaguely aware that they have some other elections as well, but I don't really know the details. How many people can talk confidently about, say, what the Portuguese electoral system is, or the Spanish electoral system? We were all in the EU, but how many of us know those things? Well, got to be pretty rare person. And so actually, even in the real world, it is completely normal for us to have no clue how the Dutch election system works, or the Belgian election system works. So the idea that you would go along to Dawn and be like, why are all these people fighting? What's going on? You're electing something, really? What? Hey, what? That actually shouldn't. It's easy to think, oh, well, that's a limitation of the art form. That wouldn't happen in real life. It's like, no, it totally would. It totally does.
Yeah.
So, but crucially, it gives you something to talk about.
Yeah.
You turn up in the dawn camp and the tourney's happening and there's a thing and people are collecting favours and people are running around and there's a banner and someone's going to be the Knight of the Summer and you're like, the Knight Protector of Summer, and you're like, what is going on? And you've got something to talk about. If you've spent hours and hours studying it all on the wiki and you know it all, and now you've got less to roleplay about. So there's a balance between kind of spoiling it for yourself in a way. Don't feel under any obligation to read great swathes. And I don't think it will advantage you. I don't think knowing what is how the Brass Coast families work or how marriages work in the Brass Coast will advantage you. I think you will find more game by bumbling into the Brass Coast camp with no clue what is going on, putting your foot in it, causing a massive social faux pas, and then having 3 people running around you trying to write a contract to sort out whatever it is you've done wrong. And you'll get more game out of it if you just let it happen to you. I think it's great. You don't need to know what a penguin is.
No. I try to encourage everyone all the new players who join and stuff like that, because I've done a few new player streams. And they're saying, but what if I don't know this? What can I do with this? And it's just like, the best thing that you can do. I remember the first thing I did at E1 Year 1 was literally, I left the Navarre and I walked off and there was a fire. I think it was in the league, and there were like 4 people just sat there. And I wandered over, said hi, and we just chatted. And that was it for an hour. And then I wandered off again. And I encourage everyone just to say, right, I don't know about this place. I'm going to go over there and find a fire, say hi, introduce myself, sit down, and chat to them for an hour.
Yeah.
Best way to find game. Make new friends. Make new friends in the game as well. So I can't count the amount of people that I go up to in game because I know them in game, and then when I see them out of game, it's just like, hi, you're. I have no idea what your name is. I'm sorry.
You're some guy.
Exactly. So yeah, I think it's a wonderful thing. Oh god, right. So Claire's asked if you had a look around the Discord to see all the enthusiasm in there.
I am 49, and modern social media is a mystery to me. There were 257,000 channels, and they were all going blip, 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 and comments were going past, and I was like, what? I've just really turned up for the stream thing. So no, I didn't really. It was all just a bit bewildering.
It really does. It's like I mute the whole thing at points. I'm sorry to say, everyone, I do mute the channel, and I'm just like, and I sit there and I go, I will read this, but it's 10 o'clock at night. I want to go to bed soon, so I'll mute and I'll come back to it another day.
My daughter has an iPhone SR or whatever they're called. I don't really know, XR, S or whatever. This is my phone. This is my mobile phone. That tells you how I connect with social media. I don't. It's all a bit lost on me, really.
Yeah,
I can just about cope with Facebook. Although the only ways I've coped with Facebook is I have 2,000 friends and I have unsubscribed from every single one of them.
Yeah,
because who on earth would want 2,000 people's feeds scrolling past? That would just turn my brain to cheese. I don't know how anyone would deal with that. I'm not evolved to deal with the modern social media age. But it looked great. It looked like lots of people were enjoying themselves and chatting and very welcoming, and that was lovely. But it was utterly bewildering.
Yeah, no, that's completely understandable. It really, really is. It's waking up in the morning and then I get my phone and then look at the notifications and it's like, right, there's 170 odd notifications. I had a look at the stats for the Discord for the last week. There was nearly 6,000 messages sent.
Right,
it's insanity.
Absolutely, it's crazy.
It's crazy, but it's all about this game you've made, so it's your fault. So well done. Rachel was asked, is there a possibility of another mail shot to get things up to date, given enough time before an event?
Maybe. I'll level with you. They cost about £6,000 to £8,000. Just the postage is probably £2,000. The printing cost is, £2,000 or £3,000. I would have to pull, a lot of people to Preston for a week, because it takes a week for a team of people to put all those things in envelopes. So, as you might imagine, we're not in a position at the moment where we're like, let's blow £8,000 on a new mail shot. That would be brilliant. We are a bit more focused on, let's be careful and cautious with our money and just keep spending under wraps. So I'll be honest with you, I think the chances of another mail shot are close to nil, just because of the costs. I think what we would want to do is perhaps do some stuff, cheery Raph videos where he talks about, what are the Grendel up to? What are the Yeti up to? What's going on in the Empire? And maybe we can record some audio of like cool stuff that's happening or something. I don't know. Mail shot, not likely. Just because of the costs, I'm afraid.
Yeah, I can imagine. I think I remember asking you about the doing another like a fan trailer for Empire and stuff like that. So obviously we were thinking that we'd get that done in April. That's a thing. But we've been quite lucky where we've got everyone who can do filming, audio, all of this sort of stuff. We've got professional costume makers and all of this sort of stuff. So the hobby has brought these people together, and all of these people are really passionate and they want to do this sort of thing. So it's going to be great. It's going to be epic. I think my script for it is like a page long, and I've spun it to people with I've put it to people with have you ever seen Disney's Robin Hood, the one with the foxes and all of that?
I haven't.
You haven't? Oh my god.
No. There's a mystery to me.
Okay, so because that was an inspiration for it anyway. So, and we've got I'm
familiar with Robin Hood.
Well, I would hope so too, Matt. But we've got professional songwriters and something and all of that. They're going to be putting like a song together, and it's all going to be great. And I'm really looking forward to seeing what you think of it when it's all done. Anyway, but hopefully we'll get to an event soon and we can actually get it all sorted and stuff. Oh my god, so many questions. Thanks Theramar for raiding. That's awesome. Oh my god, scrolling through. Jeez, there was a question about lineage that I wanted to find, but I can't find. I seem to have lost it. The
joys of a live broadcast.
I know, right?
You need a producer hooking the questions out for you.
See, that's what my mods. Well, I say that's what they should be doing. I haven't asked them to do it. That would have been too sensible. Yeah, John, chuck your question in again. Triz has asked, what's your favourite citrus fruit?
Hey, that's a bit left field.
Yeah, it is.
I'm not a biologist. I'm not really sure what counts as a citrus fruit. I'm very, very partial to orange juice, and I love lemons. I love lemon drizzle cake. I love lemon in my food. I love lemon in biscuits, in cakes. Lemony goodness. Does that help?
Yep. Well done. Appreciate it. Thanks, Triz, I think. I'm
not really sure what counts as a citrus fruit.
So, John's asked, what inspired the idea of lineage? What inspired the idea and design behind each one?
So, part of the goal with Empire, when we were creating it, is you want to build a world that feels really original and fresh and new and has got, it feels unique and innovative. Also, you want to build a game that feels really familiar and has ideas that resonate and that you're used to and that you think, oh yeah, I know what that is. I've seen that before. And obviously those two things that you want to achieve are completely conflicting.
Yeah.
It cannot be both perfectly unique and perfectly familiar. And you see this sometimes when you read fantasy novels, and it's the random place names full of consonants and apostrophes, and they made up stuff that just seems utterly bizarre, and that stuff is really opaque and it's hard to get into. And the reason it's hard to get into is because none of it resonates.
No.
You've no mythological back that supports that. You've no underpinnings that go anywhere with it. You can't think, yeah, this sort of familiar, yeah. But I like. So what you're looking for is a fresh take on old ideas. And Lineage was an attempt to do a fresh take on an old idea. We've seen races in LARP since the beginning of time, and we wanted to do something new and do a fresh take. So changelings are not elves. They're just not. They're something different. But you can look at it and it's familiar and you can see a theme. It's familiar, can be in a kind of familiar, that there are motifs and things. Yeah, I see where you're going. Draugr pull on a lot of ideas and old mythologies, and so the attempt is basically to build things that feel familiar, but also kind of fresh and new. And that's really what we're trying to do with Lineage. We're also trying to build a space. One of the problems with LRP is that people create races and then they fizz rep them in different ways. And then you're like, well, how does that work? How does that make any sense? Because like people in the real world are all fizz rep the same way. Why is that? Why does that goblin look different to that goblin?
Yeah.
And so we wanted to try and create something a little bit more immersive. So we wanted a reason why Lineage varied. It's not a race. It is an unusual magical mutation that produces this variegated effect. Because we wanted some people to have giant ram's horns that curled, and other people could have little pointy horns, and it wasn't, well, that don't make any sense. I got, so Lineage was an attempt to solve that problem. Yeah, and that's really what Lineage was about. That was one of our key ideas.
Excellent. That's really cool. So, a British historian has asked, do you feel anything is missing from the Empire crew kit? A particular monster costume, maybe, artillery, a big old bucket of water to spill down the battlefield.
The biggest thing that's missing from my monster kit is a permanent site. Am I allowed to say that? Is that just cheating? I'd really like, if I could just roll out like a 180 acres with a battlefield with a fort on it, and and a big building for the Senate, and so that's the big thing that's missing. Costumes wise, oh God, I don't know. It's been more of a challenge than I would like, creating big iconic monsters for the battlefield. It is surprisingly difficult that even an organisation with our budget, where we can go, all right, we've got 8,000 quid to build a costume or whatever, can somehow still struggle sometimes. And we've had some successes. I thought, the original War Rhino was amazing. I think the costumes that Mandala have lent us, the giants and the other monsters, have been good, been really, really amazing. I think the three new War Rhinos, the big I can't remember, land sharks that Sean Skier Moore built for us were amazing. So we've had some good successes, but equally, when we built the giant dragon head, it was amazing, but you didn't look at it and go, oh yeah, there's the future. We want more of them. So yeah, again, this just sounds so trite. We had our own site, we'd had our own workshop on site, we'd had our own facilities, we'd be able to store the kit on site, we'd be able to build more, create more, construct more. For me, it's all about logistic backbone. I don't get involved. At the end of the day, Tom Hancock's and Andy Connell run the battles. They get their budgets off Graham, and I try not to get involved anymore, because as Andy Connell points out, I just go off like a money fountain. And I kind of explode, money goes everywhere, and then it doesn't end up getting spent very wisely. We don't get a lot for it. Andy and Tom get their budgets each year from Graham, and they're very careful and meticulous about what they spend it on, and we have been slowly and systematically improving our kit. But, I can remember going to Dumnoni and just being agog at the quality of their kit. They're pulling out bucket after bucket of chainmail for the monsters to wear, or beautiful thick leather, jerkins and hero belts. And I was just like, wow. But of course, they've had 30, 40 years of building that up and having in-house the most talented, unbelievably talented people creating it. And actually, we've struggled, although we have far more money than Dumnoni has, we have not been able to achieve in 10 years what they've done in 30 by having skill and focus. And it's that focus that has given them that.
Yeah.
On the other hand, we've got 400 suits of orc armor. Ain't nobody got 400 suits of orc armor. So what we miss in quality, we make up for in quantity, which is something that we can do well. But yeah, actually, I've nailed it there. What would I really like to have? If you go back and look at the first Empire video, where people like Big Rich, whose kit is amazing, turned up and monstered a big orc general, and he's got a load of orcs and to turn up and be in the film, and they're all bringing their personal kit, and they look jaw-dropping.
Yeah,
you look at it and you're like, wow, they're amazing. I wish I had. I don't want giant monsters. I do. What I want more land sharks and flying dragons and bullets and I want monsters. Monsters are great, but what I really want is the ability to put 400 Yetoon on the battlefield and have every single one of them in our kit look as good as Big Rich that day he walked out for that video. And we're a million miles off that, and we'll never get there. But if there was one, if you say to me, click your fingers, what could you have? Yeah, I'd like a Yetoon shield wall, 100 shields long, every one of them looking as cool as those guys in the video. That would be breathtaking.
Yeah.
That's what I want.
Yeah, I mean, you've got the EMUs, haven't you? And they all look excellent together, and
they look amazing. Yeah. Some of them are just jaw-dropping, and that for me is the future. If we could keep working with the AMUs, keep supporting them, keep working with them, I think they're amazing.
Yeah,
they're stunning.
It was brought up that potentially about getting a Hefty Yeti EMU to fight on both days. So because obviously with the nation split, then we could get everyone together. We'd all have the same stuff, and then we'd put it all through, and then we'd have two different people like in charge of both, and and stuff like that. So that could be something quite fun to do as well, because I think it'll be a nice way of getting loads of new players back into getting involved with stuff as well.
EMUs are amazing on many, many levels. Yeah. So first of all, one of the points about LARP is that, as we talked about earlier, it runs on enthusiasm.
Yeah. People
want to invest in Empire and they want to make the game better. And one of the reasons they want to do that is because they're very community-minded. And one of the reasons they want to do it is because it's fun. You feel, you want to feel like you're contributing and making this big thing bigger. And actually, PD is often quite standoffish. We're often like, no, we run this bit. You do your player thing, we run this bit. And we struggle sometimes to allow players to help us make the game better. And the EMU is an area where we built a mechanism that players could make the game better. So it's brilliant for that reason. It's brilliant for a second reason, that if you're invested in monstering, you'll have more fun monstering. If you're really into what you're doing with your EMU and you've got kit and everything, you're going to be hyped. You're like, can't wait to get on the battlefield as our EMU. If you're enjoying monstering, the players will have more fun monstering against you. So making it more fun to monster makes it more fun to play the game. So you get a second benefit. And then the third benefit is we cannot do as PD orcs that we'll never do as PD orcs that are as good as the EMUs, because they've got love and care and individual attention. And all we've got is money. And money's great, but actually, as Dumnoni proves, love and skill and attention beat money. They beat money hands down. They don't just beat it, they beat it hands down. Our kit does not come even close to a fraction as good as Dumnoni's monster kit. And yet we probably have 2 extra noughts on the end of our budget. You know, because because LARP doesn't run on money, it runs on love and enthusiasm and passion and vision and skill, and that's what makes it an amazing community. So actually, the EMUs, we will never touch the EMUs. They will always be the pinnacle of what happens on a battlefield, and it's great. It's just great. They're just amazing. I love them.
Well, there we go. Then we'll be submitting a
EMUs.
Hefty Yeti, 2 Hefty Yeti EMUs then. A Saturday and a Sunday one, and we'll get that sorted. We've got some amazingly talented costume people in the community. So we're going to finish on one last. We'll finish on one last question because I normally go for an hour and a half. It's 10 to 9.
I will talk the hind leg off a donkey.
Exactly. It's great though. Everyone loves to hear it. So where do you stand at the moment then with a permanent site?
It's like the COVID question. Where do I stand at the moment?
This one's more positive, though.
It is more positive, a bit. So, I don't know what... Did I talk about permanent site last time I was on? I am a stuck record. It's all I talk about anywhere I go.
Yeah, you talked about your dreams
my
for
dreams.
a permanent site, yeah.
So, we had... Right. Basically, we've spent years talking about a permanent site. And then... The last 2 years in which Empire was running, 2018, 2019, things were growing so strongly, and the business side of it, I used to run the business side of it, the finance side of it, and I'm useless. I can't organise my way out of the paper bag, so we never made any money at all. And I think I'm more interested in running a cool LARP game. So we never had any money to buy a LARP site. There was never a convincing business case that would make it work. And then we got big enough that we brought Graham Jameson in to do the finance side, and he's brilliant. And now PD makes profits, and that's good too, I hear. And the business is, so he just sorted all of that side out. And at that point, we were like, we can make money out of doing this. If we can make money out of doing this, then we can afford to pay the mortgage on site. So suddenly the business case added up. From 2018, 2019, the business case was absolutely clear. This business can raise... there is a convincing business case that this business can support the costs involved in developing a permanent site, which there just never was in 2015 and before. It was all a pipe dream.
Yeah.
So then we said, right, how are we going to do it? So we came up with a concept, right, this is what we're going to do. We're going to form a separate business. We're going to sell shares, and the separate business will own the site. We'll sell shares in that business. We'll do a share raise. We'll get investors. That will raise us the deposit we need. Then PD will get a mortgage. There would be some financial details, which all the lawyers would sort out, because that's what lawyers do.
Yeah.
And that will create a great big pile of money, and we will buy a site. And that was going great guns. We paid the solicitors. We did all the legal work. That was all fine and signed off. And we're about 2 weeks from finishing that, and then the pandemic hit. So we formed a company. It's registered on Companies House. It exists, but we haven't sold a single share. And actually, some people were like, but I want to buy my shares now. And we were like, we're not selling them at the moment, because until we can prove that Profound Decisions is a viable business, until we can put an event on and have 2,000 people be there having a great time, we can't in good faith take anyone's money to buy a permanent site for an event that doesn't run. It's just not right. So unfortunately, the permanent site has been completely on hold for 2 years. And that has been agonisingly frustrating for me. Really, really very frustrating. But the pandemic's not been great for anyone, I hear. So I'm not going to whine about it. But we are ready. We are ready. If, first event that we have that is a success, the moment we can go back and go, look, this business is still going, then I'm going to be right out there knocking on friends' doors and going, so... Do you want to invest? Here's my hat. Passing the hat round. We just have to put £750,000 in a hat, and we'll be sorted. So it's a big hat. It's a big hat.
Big old hat. Yeah.
Big old hat. But yeah, I'm really positive about it. I have to be careful because I'm not legally allowed to talk about it. But I'm a pretty shoot my mouth off kind of guy. I'll get in legal trouble later. And so the legals is all done. The business side of it's all done. The guy who's going to sort all the lending, that's all in place. basically, we just have to run an event. Then we've got to raise the money, and then we are, my hope is that within 4 months of running a successful Empire event, I will be in front of land agents saying, I've got £1.5 million. I want to buy a piece of land. What have you got for me? And yeah, so, but the important thing to bear in mind is it will take minimum a year to find a piece of land.
Yep.
And maybe it's 3 months. Maybe we just hit lucky and the first land agent goes, oh, here's Narnia. They'll be like, oh, great, yeah, you have Narnia. Why didn't you say? Great, fantastic. I don't think that's going to happen. It will take months. It will take minimum 6 months to a year to sort planning.
Yep.
So even the day we buy a site, we will still be 18 months away from running an event there.
Yeah.
So it's a big long-term project. I look at it as a 2 to 3 year project. And unfortunately, the clock will not start ticking till the first Empire event runs. But as soon as that happens, I'm going to be on it. Yeah,
well,
because
when it does happen, I hope you'll come back here and talk to everyone. This will be a good place to pitch. We can get everyone on, because everyone is saying in chat, it's like 100% we'll put money in. Hefty fam shares by when? We will hit it. Hefty fam, yes. Buying shares, yes. Owning a percentage of the company, yes. We'll make it happen. Yeah. Everyone's. These are all new players. They've never been to an event, and they all want to buy in.
Batshit crazy.
Nutters, a lot of them. I mean, I'm going to buy in, obviously, because I'm going to. This is...
Just to be absolutely clear, it's completely illegal for me to sell shares to the public. But I'm allowed to sell them to friends and family.
We're all your friends.
I've spent hours and hours and hours and hours and hours with lawyers trying to nail down the difference between the public and friends and family. And basically, it will come down to the fact that, people who know me will get in touch, and people I know I will get in touch with. And unfortunately, it will be mates of mates, because that is the only legal way we can do it. I would love to go on Facebook and be like, I'm doing this, who's in? But the Financial Services Authority will be like, Matt, that's illegal. And it's quite bad to get on the wrong side of them. They have their long arm of that law is quite bad. We don't want to do that. So I'm not going to come on the Hefty Yeti channel and be like, share sales on me. It's not going to be British Gas. Sid says, get in touch with Matt. That would be not too old a reference for many of you. But, equally, I'm allowed to say, well, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to create a company, and I'm going to go to my friends and my family, mostly my friends, because my family all think live role playing's nuts. So I'm going to go to my friends, and some of them will probably go to their friends. And Steve's a friend of mine. I'll chat to Steve, obviously, and then Steve might chat to some of his friends, and some of his friends might be like, oh, we've heard you doing this, Matt, and they might get in touch with me, and that'll be cool. And that basically appears to be kind of how it's allowed to work. The thing to bear in mind is what the law is about. Yeah, we could do a Kickstarter. I'll come back to that in a minute. What the law is about is it's about stopping people scamming the shit out of people, because people use share schemes to scam the shit out of people. So that's why you're only allowed to sell it to friends. We're not scamming anyone. So we're never actually going to get into any trouble, because nobody's ever going to come along and be like, you cheated all these people. But we have to still stay legal. We still got to do, we can't just be publicising it on social media and shit. But we can talk about it. We can say, look, this is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to do it. If you hear about it, come and talk to us. So Kickstarters we looked at. So Kickstarter would be great. There's a couple of problems. Obviously, Kickstarter take 10% of the money, which is like, that's a thing. There's downsides. There are downsides. The thing with Kickstarter is, well, how would the rewards work? If people invest, if I set up a company to buy a LARP site and develop it as a LARP site, I want to be absolutely certain that investment pays a good return. I want most people are going to invest because they want to do LARP, but it's really important to me that it gives a return, because I couldn't sleep with myself at night. I thought I took everyone's money and then just ripped them off.
No.
So with Kickstarter, it's much more complex. Of like, well, what would we looked at returns like, well, invest and get like X free tickets and stuff, but it was really hard to make that work in a way that was.
Yeah.
And the risk is that you run a Kickstarter. There's a couple of risks. The first part is you go Kickstarter everyone, and everyone goes, well, what does the new site look like? You go, we don't know yet because we need a massive pile of money before the land agents will talk to us. So there's no site yet. It's hard to get people excited about a site that doesn't exist. But if you've got a site and you're in the middle of a negotiation, if I was the vendor, the last thing I'd want to know is, so you're going to pay for this with a Kickstarter? Like, you're not a serious punter. Go away. I'll sell my land to somebody else. Thank you very much. So you don't want to be doing it at the point where you've got the land and negotiating to buy it. So and then the question is, well, what do you do if you don't get enough money, or you've got to give everyone their money back? There's a whole lot of reasons why it doesn't really fit Kickstarter. Where I think Kickstarter will be great is when we've got a site and we go, we'd really like to build a big new 2-story brick tavern, but it's going to cost a shitload of money. PD will put up a shitload of money, but it would be great if we do a Kickstarter and we could do this and we can have this and we can have some rewards and a party on site, and everyone who does a Kickstarter can come down for the first a pub opening, and it's like a really cool IC building on site is a much more viable Kickstarter than a £1.5 million site is.
No, it makes sense. Does make sense.
So, and also, of course, but if you've done your Kickstarter to get the money to buy the site, you've kind of burnt your bridges. If you've done that and then you're going back going, oh, I got another Kickstarter for the tavern and another Kickstarter for the toilet block and another Kickstarter, you're like, oh, come on, you're taking the piss.
Yeah.
So I think we spent a lot of time looking at this, and I think, get a company, set a company up, speak to people in the community, get investment from friends in the community, buy site, rent site to PD. PD will operate and manage the site and grow it and invest in it. And then PD will do some Kickstarters, go, wouldn't it be ace if we had X? And we can raise some money and build an X and do the exciting projects.
You could,
at the point where we
can
show you a photo of where it's going to go. Yeah, buy a brick.
Buy a brick. Because
Yeah.
Portsmouth Football Club did that when they were fan owned, and they literally there was like, you buy a brick, it was like 15 quid a brick, and you had your name put on this thing, and it built. I think they sold. I think it was like 15,000.
Wow!
And that was the sort of commitment that people had, and it built. Well, it built part of a stand.
Yeah.
For the club. So I mean, these are all.
Yeah, it can absolutely happen. But I think the Kickstarters and all the enthusiasm and the social media campaigns and the can we do X, can we achieve it? And also the other side of it, which is getting people down and saying, look, we want to build a massive Navarre tree house in the tree village in the woods. First of all, we got to clear all this brash. Who wants to come down for the weekend? There'll be so much we can do in terms of community stuff once we've got a site. It will. I think it will be night and day. I think it will transform so much, and I'm so excited about it. But
massively. And I missed that treehouse in the Navarre. That was such a good amazing treehouse. That was incredible.
But just imagine if the site was permanent, and you could be like, no, we want to build. There's a 3-acre wood here, and we just want to build an entire suite of tree structures through the woods, and it's a program over 5 years, and we'll do this first, and then we'll create that, and coulda, woulda, shoulda. But before we fly, we've got to walk. There's lots and lots to do, but we are serious about it in a way that we have never been serious before, and I'm in a. The nice thing about the scale now that we operate on is we get to work with some astonishingly talented people. So like we set up a new company to buy this site, and we got directors in like Tim Baker. There probably aren't many people in LARP who know more about land and that side of things, and the buying and the owning and the development of land than Tim. Incredibly knowledgeable guy. We got Rachel Thomasin. Those who know Rachel will be in awe of her reputation. Very solid on the business side. Very, very good at the organisational side of LARP. Tremendous person. Jude is one of our directors, because she's got amazing skill at producing little events. That was really important to me.
Yeah.
When we get a site, it's going to be a site for Empire first and foremost, because Empire is going to pay the bills. But I do not want an LRP site that is just the PDs use for 4 events a year. That would be batshit crazy. To me, the joy is going to be in delivering a site that is amazing for every LARP club in the country, that's just going to allow LARP groups to produce events that are bigger and better and cooler and more astonishing and immersive than they can do now. Because there's some things you can't do as an individual. Even PD can't just magic a great site out of our arse, and we've got more money than most groups have.
Yes.
If we can produce a site that is brilliant for small games as well as for big games, then we'll have something that will be amazing, and will be amazing beyond Empire. Because I don't know how. And that's an interesting question. How many people on the Hefty Yeti stream are Empire players, and how many people do lots of LARP? Because I'm in a weird space where obviously all I do is Empire, all I do is Profound Decisions. It's my full-time job, and it consumes all my hours. But at the same time, I have lots of friends in LARP, and know lots of organisers, and I have huge respect for Jude and the small stuff she's doing, for Dumnoni and the incredible stuff they've been running for decades, for all these other games that are out there and I've been to and seen. And for me, supporting the whole hobby is a huge part of what I want to achieve in the lifespan I'm here, because it's my hobby and I love it and I'm passionate about it. And I don't know really. I don't know how many of your stream are kind of, well, actually we just do Empire. We don't really care about other LARPs. It's nice. We're not, and I suspect it'll be a mix.
It's a nice mix. I think it's like, for me, something that I've recently just started doing is reaching out to other companies. So it's like I got a little bit of a working partnership with Epic Armory at the moment, and so we've done some stuff. We've talked about their stuff, and we did a stream where we looked at Epic Armory and what they do and all the kit that they make, and we looked at Empire and we went, so you want to go off into Dawn? This is what they do that could fit Dawn here and stuff like that. So it wasn't paid, it wasn't anything like that. It was literally just let's look at what they've got and this is how it can fit into this LARP. And it works incredibly well, and it's helping. Well, I'd like to think it's building relationships, and it's encouraging. It's building
community. It's building community. And the point is, to go back to my point earlier, I wouldn't be in serious working relationships with people who are, if there wasn't something that was viable. People like Tim Baker would be like, that's lovely, Matt, but, tell me when the pipe dream stops being a pipe dream. At the end of the day, we've got a great team.
Yes.
We just need events to start happening again. So,
well, fingers crossed.
Yeah.
Fingers crossed. And
it'll happen. It will happen.
Yeah, and as soon as you need to contact your friends just to say, can I, then just chuck me an email, give me a call. I'm sure that we can get some stuff your way, because it's like I've said to you, I absolutely adore this game, and it's amazing. And I think everybody in chat and everyone will say that you have created something absolutely amazing, and everyone of your team have created something amazing. So, and everyone's grateful for it.
I'm very proud of Empire. Without a doubt, for me, it's the best game I've ever created. And I someone talked earlier about what are the players done that most excites you? Seeing occasionally someone will put a costume up. I can't even remember who it was, but 2 weeks ago, I'm on Wintermark's Facebook, and someone's put up a Suak coat, and it's a long coat, classic Suak fur coat with the sort of the buff, brown buff coat, and then they've drawn on the Suak designs with the animals, and it just looked amazing. I think they said they were a new player. I was like,
Yeah.
oh my god, that is and to see that astonishing costume and the levels that people go to, and what makes me most pleased is when I get to go, I made a game that inspired someone else to make something that amazing. You know, I look at Scarlett from Highguard, and the statues that she built.
I know.
And I'm just like, oh my god, I made a game that inspired them to make that. It's like the talent, the artistry, and the expertise, and the skill, and the labour, and the love is all them. But I can take pride in thinking my game made them want to do that. And you know, I don't want to take away from anyone, but that's what makes me feel ultimately
You can see
kind
it.
of,
It's amazing.
yeah. You know, and so I love it. I you know, and long may it continue, and hopefully we can just get it better and better and better, and just
Yeah.
you know, make it more and more awesome.
I look forward to being in a field and actually seeing you properly in a god tent or just wandering around, something like that. Just, yeah.
Fingers crossed. Maybe September. Hopefully September. Hopefully. If not, it will be April. You know, my health team are very clear. If it isn't September, April, it will definitely be April. Yeah. Providing some new variant doesn't come along and put us back to square one, we will categorically be April. But hopefully, if the current unlooked for, unexpected fall happens, then September.
Fantastic. So, thank you so much for coming on.
I really enjoyed it. It's really nice. I said I don't do social media, but it's lovely to talk to the people in your community. It's nice to answer questions. So and they've been good questions. So.
Loads, and completely different to the last time as well. Really, apart from about the site, but I think that site, the permanent site, is something that everyone loves to think about and stuff. So I mean, I know I do. It's incredible. So thank you so much. I think.
Yeah, thank you for having me on. I have enjoyed myself.
Anytime.
Cool.
Get a big announcement or anything like that you want to make, just let me know. I'm more than happy to host or help or do anything to help out in any way, shape or form.
Cheers, man.
I normally finish with news and stuff like that we're going on with and stuff. I touched on it on one stream. So one of our community is very, very sick. So we'll finish on a positive. I was wondering, because he's a LARPer, he's never been to LARP, he's never been to Empire or anything like that. So a load of us from the Hefty family actually went to his house, and we had a little impromptu song and story in his driveway, with his family were there, and it was literally like 20 minutes we were there, half hour. But he's never experienced anything like it. So we all turned up in kit, and it was incredible. It was absolutely incredible. So he has cancer, and he's in palliative care at the moment. So we're doing a big sponsored walk. So a load of people from this community, we are being silly. We're silly enough to climb Mount Snowdon, and we're going to do it at the beginning of October. I'm not asking for money. Don't worry. I was wondering if PD would be willing to put it out just to advertise it, just to say this is
sure.
Yeah, put you on the spot there.
I'm pretty confident. I'm gonna have to look at it, and you'll have to give me the parameters. But it sounds like something we'd want to talk about. You know?
Yeah, it's we have a Just Giving, so it's literally people pay anything. It all goes directly to Teenage Cancer Trust.
Right.
So it all goes directly to them. So because dealing with stuff like this, raffles and all that sort of shit, that's too complicated for me. I'll leave that stuff to this website. They deal with it all. So we're gonna do something like that. So
awesome.
Yeah. You know, as you say, LARP community and everything. We're all in this together, and we all.
I think. It is. Yeah, we are all in it together, and I think one of the things about LARP is that, if somebody's into it, even if they've never been to it, you're one of us. If you go like, oh, this look. If you look at LARP and you go, this looks cool, then you're one of us. If you look at LARP and go, you look weird, I want nothing to do with you, then you're not one of us, and that's fine too. But you don't have to come to an event to be a LARPer. You just have to look at it and think, that looks cool. I wish I was there. And if you look at it and think that, then we wish you were there with us. And if there's something we can do to make that feel a bit more real, then I think that's amazing. Just amazing.
Yeah. We'll get this sorted. But yeah, I can email you the details and.
Yeah, no worries.
And everything. Sorry for putting you on the spot, but
We'll have to be careful because we have a big thing about we do restrict charity stuff because for various technical reasons I can go through. But if it doesn't meet our criteria, I can always put it on my Facebook because I can have any criteria I fucking like for my Facebook. So
I will be as well, and it'll be all over the streams and everything as well. So but yeah, I will ping you the details and stuff of what we've got.
Yeah, awesome.
And stuff and X and stuff like that. So yeah, once again, thanks everyone for coming along to watch. These chats are amazing, as always, really informative and less Skaven this time, which was a shock. Just a little bit of Skaven.
Do you like Skaven?
Oh yeah, definitely.
If you're running a Skaven game, let me know.
Don't say that. You're going to get so many emails now. We'll put his email address in chat. It's fine. So yeah, cool. Thanks very much. Everyone chat, take care. Look after yourselves. Much love to you all. And yeah, we'll hopefully see you all in the field soon.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Bye.